And hi everyone, welcome back to this part 4 out of 5 on the RStudio basics. So if you haven't seen the other 3 videos that I have already posted, you may want to check them out. In those videos, I showed you how to install R and RStudio, our language and RStudio, and then also how to launch RStudio and do some basic things such as using a dataset that it's built in RStudio to play around and practice with some coding. So I won't go through those, of course, those are the other videos, but in some we basically work through the code, the first piece that you see here at the top, looking into how to look into the data information and how to perform the head and tail functions, the structure of the data, check for the column names, the row names, do some summary statistics on the data set, and then we learn how to slice or take a piece out of the data set for further analysis. So we did that with one specific column or 2 contiguous columns, and then 2 columns that are not contiguous, are not put together, so to speak. Take, as I said, it's a large pizza and you want to take a slice from this one side and I slice from the other side. So we also learned how to do that in the previous videos. So what I'm going to show you here now is just a little bit, again, the very basics on conditioning, just so we get a sense out of this. And for most part, it works almost like the way that we do in Jupyter Notebook or using any other Python editor. Code editor. But let's have a look at this. As a reminder, the hashtag that I use here is just to put a text, a sentence in there. Those lines do not go into the code, so it's very helpful just to I use it a lot just to remind myself of what I'm doing, or later on, a month from now, if I open this script, I can actually see what it is that I'm doing. But we wanted to focus on this conditioning here. So again, I'm using the dataset mtcars, which is built in RStudio. And what I want to do here now is I just want to look at the records that have the miles per gallon greater than 20. So we've learned before that if you want to slice or take a piece of the data set for a specific variable, you can use the $sign, right? So you have here the dataset name, which is mtcars, and then $sign miles per gallon, or mpg, which is the actual label of that variable. So all I did here was to say, okay, go into my dataset and slice or pick, select, return only the miles per gallon. I'm using the $sign for that. That is greater than 20. So let's go ahead and run this code and see what it does. Again, you can click on the run button here, or you can do Control Enter on your keyboard. Okay, so here's what happened. It did run the code, however, it returned values these values are called Boolean. So this is a Boolean condition. What is a Boolean condition? A Boolean condition is a condition that is either true or false. So basically what I'm saying here is go into the data set and return to me the values that are truthfully or true or truthfully greater than 20. So the code returns saying, yeah, the first one is true, the second one is true, the third one is true, the fifth one is false. It's not that the value is false, it's false given the condition. It is not greater than 20. So that's what it's doing. And then, as I mentioned before, RStudio would number the output rows, just basically saying starting from number 1 all the way to 17, and I know there are 17 records here because the next line starts on the 18th. So it's just a way of visualizing this. And again, those numbers do not necessarily belong to the data set. It's just a labeling that RStudio is doing. Okay, so that helps, but it doesn't really help because I kind of know which value is greater than 20, true values, and I know that some false values are not, but I want to see my table. I want to see a summary table, summary data set, filter by greater than 20. So the second thing we want to do here is to use that same condition. You can see here in line 33, it's the same condition, but I am using that condition to return from this data set the table that I want to see with the conditioning. So these tells are to basically get all the rows. I have the comma, nothing here, we used that before. Get all the rows from the empty cars dataset where the miles per gallon is greater than 20. And then return all of these columns. So it's the same idea, but now I'm saying once you apply the Boolean condition, once you find which is true or not, return the ones that I want to see that are greater than 20. So it might be tricky, but again, as I learned with this as well, it does work, and we only have to remember to extend that code. Now, if you don't remember, obviously when you run this code, you get this type of output, and you can say, okay, I can see that the system, the R is telling me there are some true values, there are some false values. But for us to actually see the table, I'm going to put that into square brackets, put the comma after the number 20, which means bring me all the rows, and then filtered now, selected or sliced, conditioned on the 20. So let's run this code. I'm going to hit Control Enter now, and there we go. Now we can actually see the same table we saw before, only with miles per gallon that are greater than 20. Okay? So that's an easy way for you to set up a conditioning on the data you want to see. Very cool, very easy. And then it becomes just a bit more interesting because now I can use that same idea, but instead of getting all of the columns that are available, you can see here I have all the columns available. I can actually tell the code can tell RStudio to only bring the columns that I'm interested in. So let's say that I wanted to see only miles per gallon greater than 20, which I have the exact same thing here. But instead of leaving this open for all the columns, I want to use the C letter, which is not for columns, it's for concatenate. I want to say, by the way, I want to see greater than 20 and only for columns 1 and 4. We've seen this before. Column 1 is my very first column, MPG. That's how RStudio labels the columns numerically. So 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. And I want to see 1 and 4. So not 1, 2, 4. I want to say concatenate column 1, skip 2 and 3, and bring me 4. And by the way, only for values that are greater than 20 when it relates to miles per gallon. So the rest is the same. I'm just adding more conditioning here and slicing to pick up whatever data set I want to see exactly. This is very, very helpful, especially when you're using tremendous values in a data set, like a huge data set with like lots of columns and lots of rows type of thing. So I'm going to go ahead and run this code, and there you go. It's just beautiful, right? So you can see now that I have my data set. The console, once again, will bring me the code that I executed in my code editor, which is up here. And then it's showing me only the vehicle models that have a miles per gallon greater than 20, and only column first and fourth. So you can see here from the previous table we drawn from this, column 1, 2, 3, 4, MPG, HP. So again, very, very easy way of slicing and conditioning your data set to summarize it to smaller pieces so that you can do further analysis. And the only other thing I want to show you before we move into session or lesson 5, which is going to be about a couple of basic graphs or plots, is this function here called table. So this function is used to simply tally, to count the number of records given a certain condition. So we've learned this before. If I have the dataset name, dataset name empty cars, and if I use the $sign and use a second variable here, which is the cylinders, this is going to slice my data, right? So we've learned that before, dataset name, $, whatever other variable, basically saying go into the dataset, my large pizza, and take that slice out of it. In this case, only cylinders. The only thing I'm doing here is adding the table function and putting that previously explained condition for slicing in brackets. So let's see what this does. Run the code, and it's kind of small here at the bottom, but you can see my code, and it's basically saying, well, we have 4 cylinders, 6 cylinders, and 8 cylinders in your data set, right? There are 11 4 cylinders, cars with 4 cylinders, 7 6 cylinders, and 14 8 cylinders. So it's a very simple function. It's a tally function, a count function, occurrences frequency, but it's also giving us a very brief summary of the count of the occurrences. So I hope you've liked this so far. Again, this is number 4 out of 5. The 5th and final of the very basics is going to address just a couple of plots, just to give you a taste of how you can customize certain plots. And I hope you've liked this, and I hope to see you next time.